Welcome to The Trust, the show about community management where we chat about trust. Community is built on trust. We're building a trust of community managers who spend their time building trust, the ways they do it, the venues they used to do it, and then we're going to deep dive into what community means to them. Hello. Yeah, you're not supposed to. Yeah, there's Tyler. Hello, everyone. It is The Trust. It's our third episode, so we are veterans now. We're live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Social Media Pulse. Check us out on any of those places. Socialmediapulse.community is a good place to find us. That'd be my favorite place to get us. We are here with Tyler Lessard. 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 Yeah, I had it right the first time. I shouldn't have said anything. He's the VP of Marketing and Chief Video Strategist for Vidyard, also the Chief Feeder at SalesFeed, and we're going to find out just what that means. So thank you for joining us. Thanks to Agora Pulse for hosting the show. And let's dig in. The name of this episode today is Building Community on LinkedIn with Incredible Content, as named by Tyler himself when we spoke last week. So I think people are very, very interested. On Social Media Pulse this month, we have our LinkedIn mission going. Check that out if you've not seen it. Just head to socialmediapulse.community and you will not be able to miss the LinkedIn mission. We're folding that into this. So we want to talk to people who are doing interesting things on LinkedIn. The theme of this show is people building community in interesting ways that maybe other people don't think about all the time, as opposed to just being on a forum or being on a social media group or something. And so Tyler has a really interesting use case that I'm excited to dig into today. So let's get at it. Tyler, why don't you tell us first off about your role and about what it is that you're doing these days?
Paul Bradley, I'm so excited to be here. And hello, everyone. Hello, Stephanie. Hello, everybody else listening out there. As mentioned, I'm VP Marketing at Vidyard is my primary day job. I've been here for just over 8 years now, which is 165 years in the SaaS world. So very proud of that. Over the last nearly decade, we've spent a lot of time really focused on things like category creation, category building, and the video marketing and video selling areas. Tremendous amount of thought leadership. Part of my title is Chief Video Strategist because I spend a lot of time helping our community, our customers and beyond understand video strategy and how to use it in the best ways. And in recent years, we've really expanded our focus on areas like social media as ways of doing broader community building, broader engagement with our audience, particularly of salespeople. Which has led to my third title. Yes, that's true. I have 3 titles. The third title of Chief Feeder at SalesFeed, which is really, I head up a team within Vidyard that's it's a media brand extension to Vidyard called SalesFeed. It's a social first content and what we call a community platform, different from what others might call a community, but we'll talk about that. As a way to engage a broad audience of salespeople based on what they're interested in engaging with, learning about, and talking about, as opposed to just what we want to talk about. So that's where we've kind of come to, and I'm spending a lot of time on our SalesFeed initiative now, and we're going to talk a lot about that and how we built a community of over 20,000 actively engaged followers in just 1 year, which has been a really great milestone for us.
Yeah, well, so let's get into that and just kind of how that started. So obviously you're the VP of Marketing, you're VP of Marketing at Vidyard. You have this Chief Video Strategist role that I think a lot of people are probably their interest is very piqued by that concept. And you end up in this SalesFeed situation where you're building community on video platforms for the most part, or video enabled platforms. Where did that come from? How did it go from just, your VP of Marketing to now there's also all this going on?
Well, as we went through the years as marketers, initially our focus was targeting other marketing professionals. So we were focused on building a community or building really a category around video marketing, around video hosting, management, and analytics for B2B companies. And throughout that, we really focused on demand generation, on thought leadership, a lot of inbound content as well. And couple of years ago, though, we started to really focus in on a new audience. And in this case, it was the sales professional. Not sales leaders, but actually day-to-day sales professionals, bag carriers, quota crushers. And it was interesting because we started to talk to those folks and realized very quickly how different they are from the previous marketing personas that we were speaking with. And I started to understand that a lot of these folks, number one, they don't spend a lot of time seeking out content. They want content and ideas and tips to flow to them. A lot of them follow a lot of different influencers online where, they get sort of daily tips from these people, things that are really actionable, and they like those, but they don't tend to consume a lot of longer form content. So we, immediately understood, well, social media, things like our newsletter can be really effective for this audience because they prefer stuff to find them rather than the inverse. But we also started to learn that they had a greater affinity for things like short form video content, podcasts as a sort of a passive listening experience while they were doing other activities. Humor was actually a big thing that popped up with them. We found that the majority of sales reps we talked to follow one or more different sales humor-based accounts, which we quickly came to realize that, well, it's because sales is crazy stressful. I mean, all of us are stressed, but sales is like, it's tough. Like it's day after day rejection, which we, really started to appreciate. And we said, man, these people want to laugh, they want to learn, but they want to do it in a way that's fast and easy and online. And so we really leaned into that and we said, what is this community looking for? And we said, short form content that they can learn and laugh, delivered to them via social media. And LinkedIn is one of the key platforms because salespeople often spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. But we also found TikTok and YouTube have been hugely successful channels for us. But that's really where it started. It was 100% audience centric. And it wasn't because we said, hey, this is what we want to do. We said, what does this community really want from a vendor like us? And then let's lean into that. So that's really where it all began. And well, here we are today.
Well, yeah, so that's interesting too. And I'm very big on the concept of community discovery, right? I think that, I think somebody asked me very recently, what would you tell us not to do when starting a community? And I said, don't just do what you think should be done.
Right.
You're one person with one point of view and one opinion. You don't represent the audience, no matter how many people you feel you've spoken to over time. You need to go and chat with them intently about what they might want from this kind of a community. And so you tell us that you heard them telling you these things. What were the steps that you went through to actually get that feedback, to find out that this is what they're interested in?
Yeah, I mean, we did a lot of research. We, of course, have a great sales team of our own that we spent a lot of time with, like a lot of different reps in our own business, asking them a lot of different questions and starting to understand how they operate on a day-to-day basis and what their preferences are. We, went out to a community of other folks, and a lot of us happen to know great sales reps at lots of different companies. And it didn't take long for some of these patterns to really align. And, the other thing that we did was, it's very basic, but we started to scour around looking at other social media channels that have really high followings, YouTube channels that had high followings. And some of them were ones that we were like, dang, we wish that was us. They were ones that we were almost like jealous of. And we were like, well, why can't that be us? If they can do it, heck, we got great people here. We can do it too. So we took a lot of inspiration from some of the things that, we felt were really aligned to the mission. And again, but just really took those signals from our audience. The most important thing was being really prescriptive in who that audience was, because, we started with sales as the audience, but we quickly found that there was a big difference between what an individual sales rep versus a sales leader versus somebody in sales enablement, and right down into somebody who's like a sales development rep, as opposed to an account executive. So we were really precise in narrowing down to a key one or two personas and said, let's lean into that and make this exactly what those people need, as opposed to trying to be, too much to too many different types.
Yeah. And that's great. And I think that there's nothing more fun than actually finding out what people want and then giving it to them. It's not that hard. And I think I was talking to another community manager the other day who said kind of a similar version of what you said there, which was, don't be afraid to copy people. Don't be afraid to emulating people is flattery, emulating people is how the world works. It's how, you know, you pattern behaviors. It's a way of looking at what's been successful and then having the courage to say, I'm going to do something like that. And I don't care if it maybe is similar to something somebody else did. I'm not saying that you guys did that, but you said, hey, there's these folks that we want to be like. We'll just go be like them. There's no shortage of interesting content. People will take content from wherever they can get it, if it's fun, if it's interesting, if it's meaningful to them. So I think that's an important message to people out there for sure. Okay, so you did your discovery. You know, you've got all this video expertise. You're coming from Vidyard, and you want to do this. You want to speak to what these people want, and give them what they really need, to the end goal of
creating a community. Was really what it was all about, and that's where we started. And what was interesting was that when I started this project, again, the goal really was to say, as Vidyard today, right, we've got this great video selling tool, and we've done a terrific job building up a brand around that. And anybody who's looking for a video tool for sales or a video messaging tool, we're pretty confident they'll find us. So that's fine. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, you know, that represents, you know, less than 1% of the salespeople out there who we want to reach and build a relationship with. And frankly, we got tired of waiting around for people to find us because they said, oh, I should use video, or they heard about it somewhere. And so we really wanted to start to build out this community of salespeople that we could serve, that we could support, that we could build relationships with, knowing that over time, they're going to need a video solution at one point or another. And we want to make sure we're there for them when that time comes. And so it really started with that notion of, let's make sure that we are building community, and that we are creating what I call a system of continuous engagement with our audience. And there's different ways to do that, right? And it's funny because when we started, I actually had in mind what I would consider to be more of a traditional community. I thought where we'd end up was like this kick-ass Slack group where like thousands of sales reps would live in every day, and we'd be running events, and we'd be going into, you know, doing road shows in cities. And that's where I thought I would end up. But after doing the discovery, as you noted, we ended up going in a very different direction. And what was interesting was I learned along the way that there was an opportunity to create more of a content-led community, because we found a greater desire there that our audience, anyways, seemed to have a greater affinity for, like, I don't want to spend time over here. I want to, you know, I'm doing my thing. And, you know, again, I want things to be able to come and find me. So that's what kind of led us to a content and social first community mindset. And we felt like if we can do that well and keep momentum with it, at the end of the day, we're creating the system of continuous engagement where this audience is not only consuming our content because we think it's the best damn content on the internet, but conversations are now happening in the comments. And that's what gets me really fired up when I'm like, oh, this community is really starting to happen, right? There are people who are kind of aligning themselves with our brand and saying, like, I'm a sales feed follower, I'm part of the sales feed community. And that means, yeah, they subscribe to our newsletter, they follow our content, but they're collaborating in the comments online. They're joining monthly meetups that we do have and things like that. But it all stems from this participation on social through our different accounts and frankly, through our content.
Yeah, well, I would dare say that you are using SalesFeed as a means of building trust in the overall brand, and kind of going back to the crux of why we named this show what we did. And what I always talk about, what's on my LinkedIn, is that the whole game of community is building trust. If you want to boil it down to one thing, I've often, you know, I think the boilerplate thing is when people say, what's community about, in one word, and they'll say empathy. You know, you hear everybody says empathy. It's like, it's trust, you know, and empathy is part of that. But, you know, in this case, it's you're out there, you're trying to provide something that gets your sales folks through the day based on what they told you they like to see to get them through the day. And that is the point of any support community, at the point of any branding community, the point of any marketing community, or any networking community, is just get people through, get people to the next thing, get people moving. And the fact that you identify that and that your discovery made you pivot, that just like makes my heart sing. I love hearing that the discovery made you go in a completely different direction, especially when that direction is away from Slack.
Amen. We wouldn't be
Yeah.
talking right now if I just fired up a Slack community that nobody engaged with. So
Yeah. And again, as I think I've said this on every episode, that's not to say that you can't build community with Slack. I just like to see people be a little bit more inventive. And that's kind of what's exciting about this. Okay. So from there, where do we go? Yeah.
Well, you know what's been really interesting, Paul, as you talk about, I 100% agree, like trust is like at the core of any great community program. No, I will never, ever argue that. But one other thing I've started to learn is, on top of course, trust as a foundation, is this power of, connectedness, really, at the end of the day, this connectivity with this community of people. And we all know it, right? As social media managers, as community managers, the importance of enabling and driving our audience to feel connected with us, that affinity, if you will, because of whatever it is that we're putting out there. And that kind of connectedness, or that kind of an affinity, can come from a number of different ways, right? It can come because you are teaching them, right? And they trust and they value you, and they feel connected because, you're somebody that they can trust to learn from. In some cases, it's because you make them laugh, you make them feel some kind of different emotion. Hopefully not scared, right? There's a whole range of things here. But it's all about like how can we create this sort of empathetic connections? And if you don't mind, would you mind if I pulled up our LinkedIn feed here?
I love it. Yeah,
because I'll give you some examples of like how I think about content creating both trust and connectedness, and stuff that keeps our audience engaged and going. So I'm going to give it a whirl here. I haven't tested this out. So let's see here. Give me a shot. It might only allow me to share my full screen. So if that happens, just pretend you didn't see anything. Oh, here we go. Okay. Perfect. We're all
good. It's not like we're live or anything.
So I'm going to share my tab here. And Paul, everything look good on your end?
Yeah.
Excellent.
I think
I
just
just
need
on the screen for everybody. Can you push it on the screen, or can I?
Oh.
There we go. There, look at that.
There we go.
Beautiful. So this is our Sales Feed LinkedIn channel, which again, I encourage any and all of you to check it out, and feel free to follow along for some inspiration or emulation, whichever path you want to go down. But I'll give you a sense for it, right? Like right at the top, actually, I'll start there. Like, look at that banner image. Doesn't that just scream like community? There's myself with my slightly longer hair, my lockdown locks, as I called them a couple years ago.
Yeah, those are great.
In the middle, he's our lead evangelist, who's like basically our like main kind of community person, who's also our main content creator. And then the other three people don't work for us. They're contributors. Gabrielle Blackwell on the right-hand side, Samantha McKenna, Rajiv Nathan. And there's a long list of others who are like actively participating in the community and creating content with us because they believe in our mission. And so we wanted to even instill that right away. It's like, this is a community, and you can see we call it, it's fuel for a better life in sales, which is kind of our motto. But now as you scroll down, I think I've got our most recent posts highlighted here, and I'll just show you. So this is kind of our main little like promo of what Sales Feed is. You already get a bit of a vibe of like what we're about. You can tell we don't take ourselves too seriously. But as you scroll down, here we go. So from an hour ago, yes, memes, folks, memes. Who doesn't love good memes? And hey, all you marketers out there, I'm sure you can get a good laugh at this, right? So this is for salespeople. Of course, here's today's meme: putting on the hazmat suit for a salesperson to go into a marketing meeting. Now, us marketers, we're going to throw tomatoes at that. We're going to be boo. But when salespeople see this stuff, they're like, "Oh, you get me," right? That's what we try to do, right? Like that's how we try to create that connectedness. It's content that's designed to stimulate those kinds of reactions, right? You get me, right? I can so relate to this. I felt like that 2 days ago, or and there are things that sometimes are like all too relatable that you're like, so memes are great for that. But then we have lots of educational content. So every day we're putting out usually a meme, a valuable piece of content, and a value post, right? So here's a value post that dives in. You can actually see we're referencing things from all sorts of different people in our community, advice that they give on a topic and things like that, intentionally creating this sense of community. And as you scroll down, you see again, this actually is a classic This is if other departments got treated like sales. Another, again, great video that's meant to give people a like, oh my goodness, you get me. But I'll scroll a little bit further down to then show you, yes, another meme. Here's a hyper educational video. Here's how to handle like all the objections. This is a video we made that literally Will teaches you how to handle 33 different objections you can get in sales. But again, it's done in a really fun, high energy way because we think our community, really aligns to this. This was posted 2 days ago. You can see, I mean, not bad. There's about 200 reactions here, 9 comments, so not a huge amount of comments. But some of them, again, you'll see like 50, 60, up to like 100 comments of things happening. So you start to get this vibe in terms of, the kind of content that we're doing. This was sales shower thoughts, right? It's like deep thoughts by Jack Andy. For those of you who may be of my era. So there's all this fun stuff in here, but also this mix.
That's the one I watched yesterday. The one you just scrolled by. That was
Here's
hilarious.
the thank you letters with Thanksgiving coming. We encourage, as it says, Thanksgiving's approaching. Don't forget to write thank you letters to your worst prospects, your legal team, or whoever you feel the greatest need to be passive aggressive with. And again, it's the kind of stuff, this is poking fun at things, right? It's BDR, thanks for the great flip last week that almost met nearly half of our qualification criteria. I appreciate you pushing me to my limits and to work even harder to hit my quota. So it's these little inside jokes that play out. And for me, this stuff is really important to create this sense of community. And I think often making people laugh can actually be just as important as helping them learn. And we found that to work really, really well in our community. Doesn't have to be for everybody's, but that's kind of how we've approached it.
And so we have a question here from Oscar Gerstein Lynch, who says about 3 posts a day. He's eyeballing it and asking, is that what you've zeroed in on as a cadence?
So what we've done as a team on each day, we do 2 to 3 posts on our LinkedIn channel, 1 to 2 TikToks. We create content specifically for each of our channels. So 3 posts a day on LinkedIn, 1 to 2 on TikTok, 1 to 2 per week on our YouTube, usually 1 a week on our YouTube channel with, sort of longer form. But when I say long form, it's like 8 to 10 minute YouTube specific videos we do. And then Instagram, sort of similarly 1 to 2 per day. And we do some, cross use of content. So like our best TikToks, one of those like 3 LinkedIn posts will often be a TikTok that's repurposed, right? If it did really well on TikTok, or we feel our community really like it on LinkedIn, it crosses over there as well. So yeah, that's how we're thinking. And that's part of this, like, this is our give to the community. If we were only posting a couple times a week, I don't think we'd have that same vibe going and that same sense of community. When there's sort of daily activity and, people can know every day I'm going to learn or laugh something over here, we find they keep coming back.
Yeah, I mean, there's you hear people talking about like feeding the content dragon all the time. And I think in certain cases, people who are individual contributors start to lose their minds because they feel like they have to do that every day. You guys have a team. Can you talk about, because you mentioned you mentioned Will a little bit, and when we spoke last week, you were very, very high on him and the idea to bring him in and everything like that. So how did you identify your team and how does it work?
Yeah, so we have a team of 3 people that are responsible for sales feed as a brand and content and beyond. In addition to myself, and I spend way too much time on sales feed because I just love it. And it's my opportunity to make parody music videos and other things.
Sure.
So living my best life over there. But the team really came from, after we did that discovery, we had a sense for where we wanted to go with it. The first thing I did was saying, I need somebody who can represent and speak to this community. And I was very, very explicit in that. And Will Aitken, who you mentioned, he was a salesperson up until I hired him into our team. He's been a sales rep for many years, very successful sales rep, understood the sales methodology, understood that audience, has lived it. And so I felt very confident he could come in and act as a peer to this community and create that relatability. He also had experience in building content for TikTok, and we knew he had a great humor element to him. So again, that was very important. So I was able to find an individual like that who I was confident could be a peer to the community, could deliver on things like the humor and short form content. We also have 2 other folks who Will's expertise was largely in TikTok from a platform perspective and LinkedIn. So another individual who runs our YouTube and Instagram strategies, who comes with great strength there and is also part of our content, strategy and also does a lot of the production. And then we have another individual who is our editor-in-chief, and she writes our newsletter. She helps with writing scripts for longer form content. She manages our podcast that we run and many other things. So it's this great collaborative team that bring different.
All right, I think some of us saw that Tyler was having some technical difficulties there with his stream, so I wasn't shocked there that he dropped off. I will say that there's definitely and as he tries to get back in, because I'm sure he can jump back in. There's definitely so much to dig into, and when I was talking to Tyler last week, I was really excited just by the fact that they had identified this means through which to build community. And I think you see it all the time on LinkedIn, people who have dedicated followings on LinkedIn. You often see the same people commenting all the time. And for those of us who don't have a great LinkedIn, which should I be admitting during our LinkedIn mission, it's definitely something that and people kind of follow you around like the Pied Piper when you've effectively built community that way. And that's what's been really interesting to see for them. And we talked a bit about what the next step would be for something like that. And here's Tyler coming right back, I think. And so we'll get into that a little bit more as we go along, if we can get Tyler's stream going. There he is. Don't worry. Your feed was a little choppy there for a bit. So when you dropped off, it wasn't a huge shock because I thought maybe something might happen. And I just started kind of rambling about building community on LinkedIn. So hopefully it was smooth enough there for a little while. How's it going over there?
Can you see and hear me now okay, or should I try calling in from my phone? I do seem to be having some home internet challenges. I really apologize.
Your audio is good. It's the video is a little choppy, so we can probably keep it going and just see what happens.
All right, keep going here. I might try to multitask and come in on my phone in parallel.
Okay.
So let's see how we do.
We can make that happen. Okay, Tyler's going to do that. To those of you who have been chiming in, Oscar, Kaz, great to see you. Stephanie, great to see you too. Hopefully this has been interesting to date thus far. As I was kind of saying, as Tyler popped on there, one of the things we'll get into with the remainder of the show, stream willing, is the concept of you've built this community via social media, via LinkedIn. I think something that we're all able to relate to, particularly those who are interested in social media pulse and these sort of things, Agorapulse's products and competitors. We're all creating content. And where do you take it from there? Is there a means through which to take that community that you build online and take it to another level? And so I think that's kind of what they're exploring there. And here's Tyler on his phone. It is looking a bit better there on the phone. Look at that. You've got a stand for it and everything. So that's working.
Yeah, hopefully I'm sort of back. Yeah, many apologies, Paul. Hopefully we can finish up now with me on mobile.
No worries whatsoever. It actually looks really good. So I'm hearing a little bit of my own voice as feedback, but I think it's actually gone now. So
okay,
all good. So going back to where you were when we dropped off, I think that you were extrapolating out, the team concept,
right,
and all that. So let's pick up from there.
Yeah. So in addition to having, Will, who came from the community, who represents the sales audience, a great content creator, we knew could lean into the humor. We brought, two other folks into the team to help us drive our YouTube strategy and Instagram and experience there, as well as our editor-in-chief, Tanya, who writes our newsletter, helps with script writing for longer form content. She does a lot of different things behind the scenes to keep everything moving along appropriately. So it really is a team effort to be able to create content at that consistency. Right. Again, when a lot of people see like, oh my gosh, like 3 times per day on LinkedIn and 2 on TikTok and YouTube, it's a lot, and it is. but we've found a great stride in being able to do that. And everything we create is in-house within that team. We don't outsource production or any of that. In fact, I even open up my video editor and edit content and push it out. And we have that sort of consistent rhythm, and it allows us to keep that consistent engagement with the community. So it's worked really, really well.
I think it's important on any community team that regardless of the hierarchy, everybody be capable and willing to get their hands dirty. You know, that's something that, and honestly, like, as somebody who's had every role on a community team, that is the most fun. It's like certainly being the head of the community is not the fun one. That's the one where you're rolling through OKRs and negotiating contracts and whatnot. So you know, it's really interesting. I am most fascinated by this, by the relatability skew, because I don't think you see a lot of people on LinkedIn. I think Oscar here also in the comments said we need more memes on LinkedIn. I don't know if that's sarcastic or not, but you don't see a lot of funny stuff on LinkedIn. And like it's very dry. And now on the one hand, I've often said that LinkedIn tends to be, I think, probably the most trustworthy social media platform at this stage, because everybody's on their best behavior, right? So people typically function in earnest because they are representing themselves professionally. I've only seen a few circumstances where somebody said something that was like, that ought to not be there. It's very few and far between. And so, but I think for that reason, people might be a little bit timid about being funny or being flippant or being, you know, sort of lighthearted. Was there a conversation that you had around that at any point?
Not really with respect to LinkedIn as a channel. The bigger thing, and I'm going to grab my power cord while I talk here, folks, because I don't want my battery to run out on this while we're going. So, but keep listening here. Just don't mind me. The one thing when it comes to doing humor is tough, right? Like, it's not something for the faint of heart, and creating good humor consistently is definitely a skill set. And so my bigger reservation wasn't so much, does humor belong on LinkedIn or this channel or in the community at all? My bigger worry was, and always is, can we toe the line? Can we create content that really is consistently funny and makes people laugh, you know, without letting them down, or in some cases without offending? In some cases we do offend people, and I know we do. And, you know, sometimes we roll with it, but that's the bigger challenge is, do you have the people, do you have the culture where doing humor well is a possibility? And again, this was like when I built the team, I knew we were going to make learn and laugh part of what we were delivering. And so I hired people that I was confident could deliver on humor. And it's hard when you're like taking an existing team and saying, okay, let's go over here and do this. If you don't have the right people, it's also hard to tell somebody you're not funny. And so it can be tough, and it can be risky to say, this existing team we have is going to go over here and start making memes, because it's easy to, you know, I mean, it can be hard to do well. So again, that is the bigger risk of doing humor, is more so if it's not actually good. It can be a lot riskier and can turn people off a lot quicker than other things.
You know, it's funny, as a person who's had community management jobs where humor was part of my job, or where I made humor part of my job when no one was asking for it, you know, like as part of building community, because it was just where the well that I went to. One of the phenomena that I saw was I never got in a situation where I really offended anyone too badly. I think for the most part, it was very measured, and we had a lot of good response, except for possibly when I was doing really bad karaoke at one stage for every Friday. That might have just offended people's musical sensibilities. But because of the attitude of those posts, often people said things in the comments that offended other users, because they kind of weren't being as measured or whatever. Have you run into any of that?
I mean, yeah, a little bit, but you know, again, I think I've been, I'm not sure lucky is the right word, because we've certainly been intentional in making sure that we've got a really great team that I think can deliver on it very well. The other thing, though, about it is we have, again, the culture within the team is such that, you know, we often act partly like a writer's room in for a late night show or for, you know, a comedy show or something where, you know, we have lots of open brainstorms as teams, and we're always pitching ideas, and nobody is afraid to tell somebody else that something doesn't land, right? Like every day I tossed something out this morning in our Slack channel and I'm like, good idea, bad idea. And I like write it out. And like very quickly somebody said, no, we missed the mark. We missed that one, right? It was like, you know, I was like, I had an idea for, you know, something to make light of, you know, like last week, there were lots of news stories about all the like the Twitter, the verified check marks and accounts, you know, like Eli Lilly, like dropping in valuation by like, you know, billions of dollars because of fake, you know, a fake verified account tweeted something. So anyway, I had a good joke playing off of that one. I was like, hey, what if we had a fake Microsoft account that tweeted, we're dropping our CRM product, but as a result, their stock price went way up, right? Which is an inside joke for sellers because they all think Microsoft CRM sucks. And so, you know, and then the team was like, funny, but we would have needed to deliver that like 5 days ago when that was like a thing. Most people have, you know, are past it now. And I'm like, yep, you're right, move on, right? And so again, we've got that culture where we brainstorm, we collaborate, and that's really important. And again, when you're trying to do humor, that there's also that transparency and people are comfortable saying, no, I just don't think that landed. And you go, okay, great. I'm either past it or, hey, let's work on it and see if there's something here.
Yeah, that's such a fun dynamic. It's some of the most fun I've had in my career, like these days, with Deb Mitchell, who comes up with so many great fun ideas. I don't know if people are paying attention to the Artemis moon launch today that finally launched after 3 months of you know, not launching. Deb actually got our community's mascot, Space Friend, on some thumb drive that's like on the thing. So we've done a whole Space Friend goes to space thing, and it's just a goofy, silly thing. It's not going to break any records for our engagement or anything like that. But that stuff is kind of the stuff that gets you through the day sometimes, and it's super interesting to think of a concept wherein that's the whole play. You and I talked a little bit about where you might go next. Have you thought about, you know, is this just this current state? Obviously, if it's getting, like, is it getting you what you're looking for? How long has it been going on, by the way? I don't even know when Sales Feed started.
Yeah, I mean, we just had our 1 year birthday.
Okay.
We're growing up so fast, you know. But in that 1 year, we've I think, you know, things I'm really proud of are not only, you know, we're at like 22,000 LinkedIn followers, we have over 70,000 TikTok followers, almost 3,000 YouTube subscribers, and over 5,000 newsletter subs. And I'm proud of all those numbers. But what I'm most proud of is the engagement numbers, right? Like, I mean, the followers come because the engagement is high, but the engagement data, you know, when I look at a month over month of like the, you know, hundreds of hours of content watched on our YouTube channel every month. And again, like, you know, our LinkedIn posts getting hundreds of reactions, dozens and sometimes hundreds of comments. Those are the things that, you know, make me feel like, okay, we're not only getting reach, we're getting resonance, right? And we're getting trust from our audience. So that stuff makes me feel like we're really striking a chord. You know, as we go ahead, we know we're going to continue to build on what we have, but, you know, I want to start to figure out ways to even allow this community to start to, you know, form amongst itself and activate and connect with each other, because we're clearly finding a lot of like-minded people who, you know, are in the world of sales. They want to get better. They appreciate the humor. And, you know, there's consistent people who are in there all the time. And so I'm thinking a lot about, like, how do I elevate this from a community perspective and, you know, help these people even more, but enable them to connect with each other. You know, I hope to be able to actually start to do some of those other things I thought I would do a year ago, which is, you know, let's go on a road show and let's like rally our community in different cities. Let's get them out to an event where we can all meet each other IRL. Maybe do a little bit of sales comedy on stage. We can laugh together. We can have a little bit of learning and, you know, some education and some networking together. And I think a lot of those things are where I really do still want to get to. But I think this content-led community was a great start and building point to that. We've figured out our niche. We figured out the persona of who we really resonate with. And I think now I really want to figure out how to activate them in almost a more traditional community sense of bringing these people together in networking and the ability to chat and learn peer to peer as opposed to just learning from us.
You know, one thing that you touched on there that I find really interesting is, or that I talk about all the time too, is if you're a passionate community builder, first of all, you may never have built community before, but once you start doing it and you're suddenly you're passionate about it, you're a natural born community builder. You are almost never going to be satisfied with what you've done. You talked about, I want to go out and do these things that we talked about a year ago. You have a million ideas at the beginning.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's, you know, prioritizing what I can do now, and what I can do later. You always feel like you're not getting there. And one of the things I used to talk about all the time when I worked on a strategic services team, where we kind of provided a baseline of strategy for community programs, was every community manager can be elevated. Like every community manager has stuff hanging up here that they can't reach, right? And every day it bothers them, no matter how good what they're doing down here is. They're like, what about this stuff up here? Damn it, I couldn't get to that this time. And so, you know, it's about kind of like providing the platform to boost people up to grab that. And that's what teams do. But it is interesting to hear you talk about that like, okay, we didn't get to this stuff and now we can get to it. And it's so satisfying when you get to it, but then also something else came up that you're not getting to. It just never ends, right? It's almost like a drug addiction.
No question. It's it is a challenge, because once you're really lean into being a community builder, and all the social media managers, I mean, you are all community builders as well, in one way or another. And I think what is really almost like addictive as a community builder is this like genuine ability to help people, to connect people, and you almost get this adrenaline rush going, right? You're like, oh my goodness, like this person responded to this. Like every time we get some of the most phenomenal feedback from our content that like I've ever gotten as a marketer. Like a couple of weeks ago, somebody commented back to us saying, literally the first sentence of their message was, "Thank you for changing my life." And we were like, we had a moment where we had like our team like all cried together, for all the right reasons this time, where we were like, oh my gosh, like this is incredible, like this person. And they were very genuine. And then afterwards they were like, your content has, it brings a smile to my teams. They were a sales leader, and they were talking about how their team members follow us, and it helps them get through stressful days. They all laugh together at our content, but they've also implemented some of our different tips and have had a huge success with them. So they're like, you've helped me and my team grow both professionally and personally. And we're like, that is like, I want a response like that every day now. Like, it's almost like this is what it's all about. And so now every day you're like, what can I do to get another, make somebody else feel like that? And I think that's the challenge, is we're always, we get into that mode. But it's a wonderful place to be, right? And when you can really operate at that level where you have the ability to genuinely think about, how can I help my audience? Like, how can I help them? In our case, we say, how can we help them learn? How can we help them laugh? Or how can we help them live a better life in sales? And I think, again, for everybody in social media roles, I encourage you to think the same way. Like, I think too many social media channels, business social media channels in particular, are very narrow in their scope. And, again, when I look at most other companies' LinkedIn channels, as an example, they're very limited in terms of what they put out there. They're often used just to promote things that the company is putting on in other places. They're used to like respond to people that are commenting on you. And I think there's just so much more that can be done. And these are channels where you can reach all these different people who are at all different stages of their professional journeys. And I think there is just such an opportunity to use that as a platform to say, like, we are genuinely going to get behind how we can help as many people as possible out there. And that's when I think you really start to win. And that's how we went from 0 to 20,000 followers on LinkedIn in a year. But again, like our Vidyard, traditional, what I call kind of our traditional LinkedIn channel, we have like 30,000 followers, but the engagement level isn't nearly as high as it is on SalesFeed. And I think it's because, again, with Sales Feed, we've just taken a different mentality. We put a lot more work into it, right? We've got a team of content creators behind it, so it's a very different mentality. But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox there. But I think that's at the heart of like why we're always reaching, and we're like, what's next? Because I need to help another person in another way.
Well, I really like learn, laugh, and live a better life in sales. I'll tell our digital confetti guy to chop that one up. We'll send that out. You know, but it is true. Like people ask me all the time, you know, why do you do this work? And I say, well, because like no matter what I do in community building, whether it's administrative that day, and maybe the whole day was administrative, but what I did facilitated my team to be able to function, and thereby knocked over a domino that ended in a string of somebody getting help, right? And so when you can help people, I think there's something to that. And to your point, it does become addictive, and it does become kind of a mission, you know, like from my perspective. From my perspective, I feel as though, and I hate to sound hyperbolic, but I feel as though building community made me a better person, because I think about what other people want, and I try to occupy their point of view. And then that helps me, like, you know, think about those concepts outside of just my job, right? Like, and where people are coming from and what they might have experienced and why they think that way. And suddenly there's all this, like, you know, magnanimity and altruism. And I'm just thinking about, why does that person think that way, as opposed to dismissing how somebody might think. And so I do think it becomes like a way of life, honestly, when you do that. And to your point, like, I love that you touched on how the data makes you feel, or the feedback makes you feel. You know, I had a guy tell me once, your community helps me not look like an idiot all the time. And I was like, wow, that's the best thing anybody ever said, because how often do we feel like idiots at our jobs, and you're trying to smoke and mirror your way through it, and I'm actually helping you smoke and mirror your way through it. That's one of the best things you could have ever said to me. I remember specifically too, like my first big community that actually worked, you know, for 4 or 5 months, it wasn't working, and we threw everything to the kitchen sink at it. And I remember being at my parents' house, home for Thanksgiving, on like the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And we had done a bunch of stuff that week because we knew there was going to be a lull on Thursday and Friday, and we wanted to see really good traffic. And I remember where I was when I looked at this traffic spike that happened on Wednesday that day, where it just like went through the roof, and it was like 10x our best traffic day ever and engagement day ever. And I was just like, oh my God, it just like washed over me. And that community after that day, it just worked. Everything just worked from there. And when nothing had worked up to that point, the satisfaction that you get from a use case that you've built, into actually, oh my gosh, this works. The validation that you feel, there's not much better professionally.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, a lot of what I think we're talking about is, you know, I think the best community builders out there, you know, have truly like deep empathy for the community that they're trying to reach. And I mean, empathy is obviously a buzzword we throw it out all the time in marketing and sales. But I think it is such an important thing to be intentional about. And I think that's the difference, is that, you know, in doing great community building, great social media management, again, in my opinion, is that deep empathy for the audience. And when I say deep, what I mean is, you know, average empathy, if you will, is I know I have a persona made up for them. You know, I know what their problems are, and I'm going to, you know, do some certain things related to that. Like, that's good empathy. Deep empathy is really putting yourself in their shoes, different types of people in your community, and actually starting to go a level deeper and understanding, like, okay, what do they, you know, I know what they want to hear about, or this, but like, then like, where do they want to hear about that? What format do they want to hear about that? Am I like investing time to respect their time or their interests? And like a great example of that is when we, you know, like one of the reasons we've been really successful on LinkedIn is we design content for LinkedIn, right? Like, we know when we're putting it out there, we're like, if it has this big long preamble because it's like an 8-minute long video we did somewhere else, we're cutting that. We're like doing a LinkedIn specific version, because we think about, okay, our audience at this point in their LinkedIn feed, right? They're not necessarily like coming there to spend a half hour researching. It's something that's probably interrupting in their feed. And so we're like really hyper intentional about that, of saying, how do we respect their time? How do we respect their interests? How do we respect the platform that they're on, to make sure they feel genuinely like, oh wow, this team like really did put in the effort to make sure I had the best experience as a follower. And that comes through in the content you put out there, and how you curate it and how you plan it. And that's what I really encourage, again, back to, talking about, LinkedIn as a big topic this month. That's a big thing that I've learned, is if you're really intentional in saying, what are we creating for our LinkedIn channel, that audience that will resonate with that audience while they're on this channel, and that is going to add value to their day in one way or another. I mean, that's a simple starting point, and having that deep empathy for who they are, what their expectations are, what's really going to resonate with them in that channel is really, really important. And not enough marketers think to that depth about it.
Well, and I mean, yeah, and it's again that hand in hand with trust. Like when you show people earnestly that I've put forth an effort, unsolicited effort, by the way. I like, you didn't ask me to do this. I've come out and I've decided that you are a person that is important. So A, I've validated you that way, and B, that I'm putting an effort beyond just, starting something up and then hoping other people will run with it. I'm here every day putting forth resources and making sure that you have what you want, asking you what you want, or actually, not even asking you, watching what you say and then delivering it back to you. People feel good about that, because people feel good about, in my opinion, about anything that they don't have to like force. So often it's, I've got to do this for myself. If I want it done, I'm going to have to do it myself. If you can replace that, if you can actually get things done for people that they don't have to do themselves, you then become so valuable to them. Like the guy who said, you make me not an idiot, not look like an idiot. Then you're a valued resource. And then it goes back to like what community is. And so the reason that it's, empathy and trust and whatnot, and you have to come from it from that perspective, is our job at the end of the day is to get people coming back. It's not to get people to come. You can get people to come look at something once. Anybody can get that done. It's a matter of getting them to look at it once. And when they've looked at it that time, knowing, like planting the seed in their head of, I've got to look at this again. And I think back to your point too, of like people who are real community builders, real community management professionals who just have it ingrained in them. They don't have to necessarily think about that because they're so passionate about the people, the personas and the people and the industry. Like you're talking about, Will was a salesperson. Well, that makes it's built into his DNA, right? And he's been in those conversations. He's listened to the jokes people have told, around those rooms, or knows what the pain points are. And I think that, and there's arguments too from all directions, right? Like there are community managers for things that they have nothing, that are excellent, that they have nothing to do with that skill set. But the people who do that need to co-opt and bring in people from that skill set in order to be relatable and interesting and solve problems. And they need to know that they have to do that. So you knew that you did. And you've built quite a successful thing here. So, what else are you guys thinking of doing with this, with Sales Feed?
I mean, actually, frankly, I love a lot of the things that you've done with Social Media Pulse. I love how you've built and offered things like training content to your community. And I think that's something we think a lot about because we're producing so much content so consistently. We know our audience appreciates it on the social channels and other places, but we've actually gotten asked a number of times. They're like, hey, do you guys provide like formal training, or can I pay you to come train my teams? And we're like, well, we don't today, but it seems to, again, the other content seems to resonate so well that, that's always on our mind of, could we again level that up so that there is things that are even more instructional in nature. Again, that's stuff that wouldn't necessarily be a part of our LinkedIn presence, but those people now understand and say like, hey, when we talk about this, you want to go deep on it, great, like head on over to this part of our community or our YouTube channel or wherever it is, and there's training content here, and like we're putting it out for you because again, we're investing in the community, and we're in a fortunate position where we can do that, and we've got some really great people that want to do this. So there's things like that of that's always on my mind. And I mean, those are some of the biggest things, like how do we rally the community? How do we offer more to them? The other piece as well which I've found to be a really interesting and really successful part of what we've done. And I think this applies again to any content strategy and even social media strategy, is that we've been intentional in activating and elevating, again, people across the community so that our content isn't always us, right? And some of our best content is the content that features people from this community that we're a part of. Different, and we're actually intentional in saying there's sales experts, there's sales practitioners, there's sales enthusiasts that are all involved. And you'll watch a video on, like, for example, we've got these great videos we call sales FAQ, where we ask a common question to like 10 different people across the sales community and get them all to weigh in on it. And so now you get these sort of different perspectives on this one topic. And often what you will find is, you've got, some people, you've got like 3 sales trainers, you've got 3 like day-to-day sales practitioners, you've got a couple of others who, are, whatever role they play. And so you get these diverse opinions from across it, but we're really great at curating that from different people and then producing it into something that's really fast-paced, really helpful for our audience. And that's something I'm really excited about and proud of, and that I want to continue to really lean into, is activating these voices from across the community in very intentional ways. And doing it where it's a win-win, right? For them, they love to participate because they love to get their ideas out there. And on the flip side, of course, sometimes they have way better ideas than we do, and can help our community. So I think that's an interesting one. And as again, people think about their LinkedIn or other social media strategies, I really believe today that social media platforms are content and community platforms at the end of the day. And content is really going to fuel engagement on these social channels. You need to have an active content strategy. And I think a big part of that as well, when you marry it with the fact that this is a community that you're in, when you marry those two things together and say, I'm going to create great content, and I want to include people from the community who maybe already have great followings on this network, bring those two things together, make content with them, push it out there. Those things work really, really well, and is something we're going to keep leaning into.
Yeah, and that's how you scale too, right? As things get bigger and bigger, and you need to serve more and more people, you got to diversify your contributors, and really, like, when they start to come to you with that content, that's the most rewarding time. And it's funny, like, I think I've worked on at least one use case where I became almost unnecessary as it pertained to content at the end. And it's like, I achieved perfection, right? Like, this was the goal. But now what do I do? I got to go get another job. We did it,
Don't worry, there's always something else you're reaching for, Paul. You're good.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. That's true. Well, Tyler, I really appreciate your time today. This has been really fun. Is there anything else that you want to share or touch on, or
no, I think we touched on the really important points here. What I've learned anyways over the last year doing sales feed and prior doing broader things. Again, I think just to recap some of the high points, when you take that approach of saying, I'm going to create content with hyper empathy for my audience, really understanding what they're interested in, what really moves them, what kinds of formats do they appreciate, and you really lean into that, you can create that value for them, but also a lot more of that connectiveness. Like they feel like, oh, they get me, they respect my time. And I think that's really, really important. And I think that's when you can start to turn content into community. So I'm really excited about that as an approach. And then you can start to marry that up, of course, with all the other great things you do to empower your other online social followers or your broader communities. The last point is just focus more on engagement than on reach and followers. I talk about our follower numbers, but more so I obsess over our engagement, because the engagement is a indicator of resonance and relatability and value in the content. And that's when you create a community around it. So go forth, create highly engaging, highly relevant content for your followers, and the community will form when you really nail that and get it right.
There you go. Go forth, people.
I gotta find a mic to drop here. Shoot.
You have your mandate. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tyler. Everybody go check out Sales Feed. I've had the link up there for quite some time. So you can find it there. There's also the Sales Feed media site. Go there, sign up for the newsletter. I just signed up today. I can't wait to get it and see more of the fun content that you guys are doing. Thanks so much to everybody who watched today. Hey, go check out Mission LinkedIn on Social Media Pulse. You can't miss it if you go to socialmediapulse.community. This is a part of it. There's so much more LinkedIn content out there. Deb Mitchell has curated a ton of it, and Christine Gritman and Ruth Inman and Phyllis Kerr. It's really exciting out there. So check us out. And that's it. That's the end of the show. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much. Welcome to The Trust, the show about community management where we chat about trust. Community is built on trust. We're building a trust of community managers who spend their time building trust, the ways they do it, the venues they used to do it, and then we're going to deep dive into what community means to them.